Welcome to episode 2 of Critical Role Demystified. Every other week I am examining an episode of Critical Role, recapping it, and finding out what lessons we can learn from it. So let's see what we can learn from the second episode of the Vox Machina campaign, Into the Greyspine Mines. First, let's summarize what happens in the episode. After fighting some monsters that came up out of the mines, the party meets with Nostoc Greyspine, and now they are officially contracted to stop the problem causing the monsters to come up out of the mines into the city. They again try to get some magical support from House Thunderbrand, and we are treated to Keyleth's attempt at a dwarven accent.
Oh, hello!
Liefen, laufen, lopen, leben.
Ja, from Steven.
Iconic. Instantly iconic. They get a map to the mines, they buy some potions, and then they head down into the mines beneath the city. The party fights 2 Umber Hulks, which is the first time they fought them since they've moved over to 5th edition. However, once the Umber Hulks are dead, Grog goes running into the next chamber of the caves without waiting for the rest of the party, and without anybody pausing to take a rest. And he faces a handful of Duergar, which are underground deep dwarves. And there's another creature with them, a brain with 4 little chicken legs. This is an intellect devourer. And if you are familiar with them, then you can probably guess what sort of monster might appear in the next couple of episodes of the campaign. The party wins the fight, and they keep 1 Duergar alive for questioning. But during the fight, Grog is hit by a psychic attack from the brain. And Grog the Barbarian, who previously had an intelligence of 6, now has an intelligence of 0, and lies catatonic on the ground. Even after the brain is killed and the battle is won, Grog is unresponsive. And that is where the episode leaves off. So let's get into the lessons. This is going to be a shorter video than our episode 1 breakdown, thankfully. Because honestly, there is not a ton that happens in this session that you could not easily replicate at home. We'll talk another day about some of his general approaches to combat, but today I want to talk about the way that Matt uses classic D&D monsters. Matt is an old school D&D player, and there are certain elements of the game that he considers iconic. Spoilers for the next episode, but Illithids, aka Mind Flayers, certainly fall into that category. And here is where he begins to draw them out and start to highlight their lore for the players. Because remember, most of his players have not played D&D before. So for them, this is their introduction to these monsters. So the beginning of this, the first interaction we get with these monsters, is the Intellect Devourer. And he gets to show off one of the fun, unique things the Intellect Devourer can do, by hitting Grog with a psychic attack that drains his intelligence and leaves him basically unconscious, indefinitely. There's one other power the Intellect Devourer has, and it's pretty nasty, because it could actually destroy Grog's brain and teleport into his skull, and then it could start piloting his body, taking control and posing as Grog. I don't think Matt ever really considered the possibility that this would happen, because he knows the party is pretty powerful. After the Intellect Devourer stuns Grog, it gets killed pretty quickly, so it never had the chance to take another turn and take control of him. None of the other foes in the fight, none of the Duergar, pose nearly as much of a threat to the party, certainly not compared to the Umber Hulks that they just fought. But one Intellect Devourer against your Barbarian with an intelligence of 6 can not only knock him out of the fight, but incapacitate him completely and indefinitely. Of course, Matt also knows that he has a Druid in his party, and potentially a Cleric once she's able to come back to the game. And they are high enough level to have access to Greater Restoration, so he knows, whether or not the party knows it yet, that there is a way for the party to fix this problem, and it's very doable. It's not a forever problem. It just halts their progress for the night and costs them a high-level spell slot. And, probably more importantly, it begins introducing them to some of the most iconic villains in D&D lore. It starts the ball rolling and gets the party familiar with what these monsters can do to them. They attack your mind, and that prepares them before they have their first encounter with the real nasty stuff, which comes in the next episode. There's also a funny little connection here. The Umber Hulks also attack the players' minds. It's a passive ability, unlike the attack of the Intellect Devourer, but the players have to avert their eyes when they attack the Umber Hulks, otherwise they may come under the effect of a confusion spell, which can cause them to waste their turn doing nothing, or attack a player, or run in another direction. So even before we see the Intellect Devourer, he's beginning to present monsters that are going to have an effect on the party beyond just attacking their armor class and taking their hit points. But if the Umber Hulks are the first layer of that, the Intellect Devourer is certainly the next. And the Intellect Devourer sort of functions as a bit of a herald for the real monsters, the Mind Flayers, which, as I've said, we will see for the first time in the next episode. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Critical Role Demystified. Join us in another 2 weeks for the next episode. In the meantime, I have lots of other fun D&D stuff here on the channel, advice for new players and DMs, and more coming on the way. So subscribe. Until next time, play fair and have fun.